We're just finishing admitting everyone. All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Tanya Milan from Self-Sufficient Homesteading and Gardening, and my co-host is Warwick Salsa from Beware.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we've got a great talk coming up for you today, and it's a very important one, I think. A lot of us are struggling with African horse sickness in South Africa and other vector-related diseases. So we thought we'll start this topic or do this topic for you tonight. And we have invited a veterinarian, Sai Mtswheni. Sai Mtswheni works for NHLS, the National Health Lab Services, in the SABP division. They basically make anti-venom for spider bites, scorpions, and snakes, but he's also the stable manager there. And he has everything to do with their horses as well. So he will be here to talk to us also and give us some answers. And then he'll also be talking to us about other vector-related diseases. Terry was supposed to be here. I don't see her on at the moment. So once she gets on, we will introduce her. Warwick, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Thanks. Hey, Tanya. It's good to have you on, Sai. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for everybody else that's joined us tonight as well. It's great to have you. It's part of a 3-part series in April where we are doing a prize giveaway. So you guys are, hopefully you've tagged and shared and all those things too. And feel free to put your video on if you're not sitting there, Kalkhat, or in your PJs already. But just keep your mics off, please, until the Q&A session, okay?
All right.
But yeah, doing good, thanks. We're a bit chilly at the moment. Cold fronts come through, but other than that, we're good to go, hey?
Brilliant.
I'm looking forward to tonight's chat. I think it's quite a significant subject, even though there isn't going to be much. I mean, hardly anything about beekeeping from our side. But I'm thrilled. My uncle's got horses. He's got some Arabs. He's had for years, a couple of decades now, and so I'm keen to hear what we're going to learn tonight.
Okay, great. Yes, just so for everybody's knowledge, or how I can say it, we normally do talks on anything bee related and homestead, self-sufficient homesteading, and horses is part of that. As Warwick says, there's nothing, bees have got nothing to do with that, but we normally have all these great topics, and this is a great topic tonight.
It's awesome.
And yes, the giveaway that he was talking about, we've got 3 live talks this month, every Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. And if the people that attend all 3 go into a draw for a beehive, which we will courier to you at our cost within South Africa. Anyway, all right. Do you see Terry yet, or is she not here yet?
Not yet, hey?
Okay, I think we should start in any case.
Yeah.
So once again, welcome everybody. Can I see, I don't know if you guys know how to put the show of hands on your settings there. Can I see who are horse owners here? Or maybe if somebody would like to, you can unmute yourself and just say, I am. I see Terry is just giving me a call. Just one moment. That's one of our special guests. So just give me a moment.
Did you find Terry? Okay, so while we wait for a couple of extra people to come on, a couple of latecomers, welcome to Kirsten. We can see Kirsten. Welcome to Caroline, John, Mandy, Joe, Tanya. Welcome back, Tanya. Yeah, that's awesome. Deborah, Barry, welcome back. But Nanka, Andrew, welcome to. Good to see you again. Leslie Elton, nice one. Janine Knox, you made it. Woo! No, that's great. So. Cindy, also welcome. Nick, thanks for joining us all tonight, guys. Davina and Nelly and Melandri. So you guys have got horses. Who else has got horses? You can, I think, if you click on, you can right click on yourself or go into the 3 little ellipses on the side of your window, and you can type to us or go to reactions at the bottom and put your hand up, or Yeah, I think it's under reactions at the bottom. If you've got a horse, or if you own horses. So that's cool. So quite a few people. Tanya, we can't hear you. I think she's talking to Terry at the moment. Cool. Yeah, guys. So while I've got you for a short while, what I'm going to say about horses, right, is if you want to keep bees, they're not the best of friends with horses, simply because it's believed that the pheromone of the horse, the sweat of a horse, especially in the hot temperate times of the year, is similar to that of the attack pheromone or defensive pheromone of bees in a hive when they go in a swarm. So it's probably not a good idea to keep your hives anywhere near a stable and or any other animal shelter, actually, for that matter. They should be 20 meters away from the animal shelter. Okay.
Great.
You
Thanks,
back, Tanya?
Warwick.
Cool.
Sorry about that, guys. Terry just phoned. She's unable to make it. Apologies from her side. So we're going to carry on without Terry. Okay, I see there's quite a few people that are horse owners here. Melandri, Deborah, Nelly, Davina, Narina. Okay, great. I don't know how many of you guys have experienced African horse sickness or have any experience with it in terms of treating your animals, etc. But there's been a few controversial topics about African horse sickness, and one is vaccines, and the other one is treatment, of course. And then we've got prevention, which is not controversial, but that's a topic we can cover too. But let me tell you about our side. We have Alcana Equestrian Estate, which we changed over when our trainer left in 2017. We just have Alcana horse trails and camps at the moment. We used to have like 23 horses, and we've scaled down quite a lot now because we're not doing anything commercial anymore. It's just for our pleasure at this stage. But in the years that we've had horses, we have had 34 cases of African horse sickness. We are based in Limpopo, so we're quite in a hot spot, I would say, of African horse sickness. We also stay, our farm borders on a flay. I don't know what a flay is in English, but that flay doesn't have consistent water. A marsh, there we go. It doesn't have consistent water, so it gets water and then it stands for quite a while before it's completely empty. And I think that's quite a big factor that contributes to us being a hotspot. So out of our 34 cases that we've had over the past few years, we have lost 7 horses. And I do think that one doesn't want to lose 7 horses, but let's look at the other side of the story. How many horses did we not lose in the process that were seriously ill? On my picture behind me, the one to the left, her name is Shanghai. She's one of my AHS survivors. And over the years, we have experimented with treatment protocols, and we've also experimented with the vaccinations. We have given onderstepoort OBP vaccinations, and we've given DCA vaccinations. And while we are there, Sai, do you have any knowledge about these vaccinations in terms of how updated they are at this stage? Because the strains keep mutating and changing. Do you have any insight for us there, Sai?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, Tanya, let's just fix this first. I am not a veterinarian, but I'm an animal health technician that has a broader scope. In fact, my scope has been, broadened because of, the nature of the job that we do here. But otherwise, I'm very knowledgeable based on this, the topic that we are about just to get into today. So at this point in time, what we normally order are vaccines from, your normal OPP vaccines from onderstepoort OPP themselves, where they're manufactured. At this point in time, we haven't because normally they would communicate with us to say this is what that we have improved in certain strains of some diseases, because we don't just only keep horses, but we keep as well as sheep. So mainly they would update us in terms of the vaccines that they're having for sheep. But at this point in time, they haven't. The strains that they do have, they haven't changed for quite some time now. So basically, as much as we are saying that the strains keep on mutating, but then they haven't changed anything.
Okay. I think, Sai, that's part of the problem, because the virus mutates and we are not keeping up. The government or the institute is not keeping up to the changes in strains. And I know DCA was having people send blood in so they can keep their vaccines up to date. However, I'm going to talk out of experience at this stage. We have done over the years tests where we vaccinate with OBP, and then we've done where we vaccinate with DCA. We've done where we vaccinated with both, and we've done where we've vaccinated nothing. And I must tell you, through the years, that the success rate through all of them, or the loss rate, was the same. There was no difference if I vaccinated or did vaccinate, which is quite alarming to me. So the result is myself. Wow. I do not vaccinate anymore because it makes absolutely no difference. And I do not say that everybody else should be doing this. I know people, if they want to compete, they need to vaccinate their horses. So go ahead, vaccinate your horses. Myself, I just don't do it because I have not seen any change from it being better or not, or worse. It's just the same. So that's the first thing I wanted to say about vaccinations on my experience. Yes, Warwick?
Tanya, I just want to clarify, just how many horses was that?
27 horses.
27.
Yeah.
And they all were, partly they were vaccinated and others weren't vaccinated, same result.
So if they were vaccinated, not vaccinated, same result. They would get AHS, wow. They would die, they would live. There was no difference.
Okay.
So that's that with vaccinations. However, the treatment protocols have been very crucial to us. We have tested many treatment protocols over the years, and with 34 cases, I think we're quite experienced. But what I have found, the most effective or the most important thing about your treatment protocol of African horse sickness is 24/7 care of your horse. I do hear of a lot of people, their horses get African horse sickness, they phone for assistance, they inject their horse with something, they give them some supplement, and then they leave them for the night and they go sleep. And that, I think, is part of the risk. There's a big risk of leaving your horse and not being with your horse all the time. We as a family, we do a shift program where my daughter does a shift, my other daughter does a shift, I do a shift, because you get really, really tired. Some of the horses are sick up to 10 days, and I'm sure Melandri, Deborah, and Nelly, and Arena, and them who's had maybe experience know this. Our horse that's been down the longest was 10 days. She did recover, and today she's in Namibia. She was exported to Namibia. She is there at a stud in Namibia at this stage. So 24/7 care, very important. Why do you need to care for your horse 24/7? And why can't you just leave your horse? The horse, when he gets African horse sickness, does not have the ability to regulate its own temperature. You have to do it for the horse. And with that, we take temperature every half an hour. So that's quite intensive.
That's intense.
And yes, and with the temperature of a horse with African horse sickness, you want a temperature that is higher rather than lower. So the ideal temperature for us that we found is between 38.8 and 39.5 roundabouts, in that region. That's where we want the temperature of the horse for us. We don't want the horse to cool down. The moment your horse cools down to below 37 degrees Celsius, you are at a high risk of losing your horse. So how are we regulating these temperatures? When the horse's temperature is dropping, we do put on blankets. The problem, though, is that the horse starts sweating. So then the hard work starts, because then you have to start rubbing down that horse with blankets, with towels, to keep it dry, so it can raise the temperature and not just drop it again because it's getting cool from the sweat. So blankets on, blankets off, blankets on, blankets off. It's a full-time job to look after a horse with African horse sickness. So that's the temperature. The other thing about 24/7 nursing the horse is you can see what's happening. As we all know, we get Dinkop and we get Dikkop with our horses. And with DINCORP, you have a great chance of losing your horse. But if you are with your horse, you can manage the symptoms. You can manage and keep your horse comfortable. You can keep your horse up straight. What happens with DINCORP often, it either happens really quick where you don't have time to treat, or it happens over a longer time period. But then you have to give great care. And the horses tend to jump up and drop down, jump up, drop down, because they cannot breathe. Their lungs are filled up with fluids. So that's another big part of the job. We've got these big pillows that we've bought, and then we put it behind the horse so the horse is perked up. It doesn't lie flat on its side, because then it will just drown much sooner. So how do we manage then the water, because there's water on the lungs? We have found that a pharmaceutical medicine is helping for us. I just want to go one step back. With our years of experience, we've experimented also, like with the vaccines, we've experimented only pharmaceuticals, then only herbal medicines, and then we've experimented with herbal and pharmaceutical. And we have found that herbal and pharmaceutical together has been the success story for us. So back to managing the water. There's a product that you can get from your veterinarian called Salix. Now, Salix, let me just calm my dogs here one moment. All right. Salix is a pharmaceutical product that drives down water, and it's very, very effective. Yes, you have products, the herbal products as well, like your parsley, that helps with taking down water, but the Salix is very effective. And I have found that I want to use the most effective thing. So Salix is the thing. Once every 12 hours, we inject with Salix to drive down water. Then we also use for the swelling, because the horses with DINCORP gets really bad swelling, and sometimes it gets so bad that they suffocate because the swelling just closes up their airways. We use Allergex, 1 Allergex per 50 kilogram every 6 to 8 hours. Now, that's depending on the swelling. If the swelling is really bad, we'll give that dose every 6 hours. If the swelling is not too bad, we'll give it every 8 hours. But we found that that is also a crucial part of our protocol. Then we have in our little medical kit as well, we have immune boosting herbs. Now you can choose where you want to get your immune boosting herbs, and we have found that it is efficient. People have asked me many times, is it really necessary? I do think it is, because it is building your horse's system while it's fighting this virus. So choose your supplier of herbal supplements, immune supplements, viral supplements, and stick to it. Every 2 hours, give your horse the herbal supplement. We also give every 6 hours. We give, depending on the size of the horse, but an average of 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C to also help with the horse's immune system. Another thing in our kit is cortisone. However, we don't use cortisone if we don't have to. We call cortisone our loaned time. Whenever we see a horse is really bad and we might lose this horse in the next half an hour to hour, we will give cortisone in the vein, and that normally buys us between 8 and 12 hours, in which we work on the immune system again. Because the downside of cortisone is it breaks down the immune system, but the upside is it gets your horse up, it gets it better, it gets some swelling down, it gets everything just gets a bit better. I don't know how to, maybe Sai can explain it better than me, but there's definitely a better ship in the horse if you administer some cortisone. But that is only in very, very acute cases where we think we're going to lose the horse now. So That's basically what we do. I will just recap that. We've got cortisone only for emergency situations. We use Salix for a DINCOP case. We use Allergics in all cases. We use immune supplements and verbal supplements in all cases. And we are with our horses 24/7. That is what we have found to be the most effective. And there's one more thing. If your horse is very restless and it's got DINCOP and it's jumping up and falling down, we also give cannabis oil. The cannabis oil tends to keep your horse calm. Just make sure you've got the right type of strain of cannabis oil. You want the one that makes them calm and not up and awake. Just be aware of that too. So I don't know if there's somebody between the horsey people or non-horsey people that want to contribute or ask questions about the African horse sickness or say something that's been a success for them. This is a talk about sharing our knowledge and helping each other. And that's just reminded me of something that we've introduced now as well in our last case, which is ivermectin. And that's what Terry was supposed to be talking about as well. Terry is an expert on ivermectin.
Yes. I was going to ask you about that.
Yes,
as soon as you
yes,
started mentioning lung issues, water on the lungs, I was going to ask you about the ivermectin because obviously it's being used for,
for COVID-19.
COVID now.
Yes. When we had a case about 3 weeks ago with a horse with African horse sickness, my logic just told me, I'm not a veterinarian, I'm just a homesteader and I'm just a horsey person. So my logic told me, if ivermectin is working for COVID-19, why can it not work for African horse sickness? I've also read up on it. It helps. They use it up in Africa, through Africa, for African viral diseases. So why not African horse sickness? So I did start administering ivermectin to my sick horse. I did 2 milliliters on 50 kilograms of body mass every day for 5 days. One day I was injecting in the neck, and the next day I was putting it on transdermally because it was such a big amount. It was about 20 mils for this horse. It's a huge horse. So 20 milliliters. So I didn't want to put too much. I had to put 2 injection sites. I didn't want to do it for 5 days in a row. So that's why we did it transdermally as well. 2 mil per 50 kilogram of body weight. And that horse pulled through. I am really impressed. And I do think that it has played a role in this horse getting better. We had another case. Unfortunately, she died, but she did not give us time to treat her. We saw she was sick at about 8:30 in the morning, and by 12 she was already dead, unfortunately. So there was no time to treat that horse. Okay, I see we've got Jenny Stain coming in as well. Welcome, Jenny. All right, so that's the story on ivermectin. Is there anybody that wants to say something with regards to African horse sickness, their treatment, the way they use their success, or any questions? If you've got, you can just unmute your mic.
Yes,
Sai, you want to say something?
Yes, definitely. Fortunately for me, I would say, rather it has been another kind of like advantage and disadvantages, because I have been working here for 12 years now. This is my 12th year. So basically, because I think you're right, it will depend also on where you stay. Gauteng is kind of like moderate. It's, like we've got very cold winters and sometimes, like very cold nights during summer. So, and I think it also has to do with, I'm talking in terms of like prevention, in terms of like, the elevation, your area where you're situated, it also plays a very pivotal role in terms of like controlling the vectors, the calicoides, midges, the miches, that causes the diseases on itself. I mean, like, and then the other thing, what we have been doing that has proved to be effective in our unit is that our horses are stabled each and every night. So we would let them out after we've worked them out and stuff like that in terms of bleeding or maybe like immunization in that time. And then they go down to the camps. It's kind of like marshy and like bushy, and in terms of like, it depends also in the terrain, but it's not always like that. It depends. Some like it's elevated, some it's down, but it's during the day at around about 1:30 each and every day. Then we bring them in. They head them into their stalls where they'll be stable there for like for the quiet duration of the night up until tomorrow. And the other thing that we are doing that has proven effective in these things is that we have, like, each and every corner of the stables, we have installed like your electric fly zappers. Like is it the one that has got blue colors? What is it? Is it what
The
do they
blue,
call it?
yes.
Yes,
Don't
it's
know
the
what they call them, but I think we know.
yes, the ultraviolet light, and it attracts them more than like they would be attracted first to the animals that like they would feed on, and then therefore they die immediate. And during like um, uh, 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 um in terms of like your you stable them, you put them you install fly zappers, and also you make sure that you vaccinate. But as much as you've talked, and I know that many people have been complaining about the OBP vaccines, of which I have been using them all these years. It's just only that last year that I did not use them, because like it's also a struggle to get hold of them, especially when you need them like during the short period of time whereby you need to vaccinate. Like there are many companies that like are sorting them for like purposes of like selling them, like something like that. But then that's the reason that I only did not vaccinate last year, because I did not get hold of them in time. And also you must also, I would not know in terms of like your region in Limpopo where you stay, but what I know here, you've got to also to time your seasons. The best year that works for me, best year is around about August and September. Therefore, and then you do know that they've got 3-week interval, and then the boost has got 3 weeks interval. Therefore, if you've just started with like the initial vaccine today, then you'll wait up until 3 weeks. Then therefore you administer your vaccine. That also you should be accurate. You should not like skip the exact date that which you have to administer your vaccines, because I think that has also got to do with like the empowering of the antibodies into the system of the animal. And yeah, as much as you've said, I think it also like the environment and the region and the climate in which one is situated plays a very, very, very pivotal role in terms of that. And as much as I'm saying that I've never not even one case, only our horses, when they die here, they would die of like your like heart attacks, because like it would have been a strain for them to have been subjected under like venom over a very stretchy period of time. And then like sometimes the heart, the kidneys give in. And the most thing that I would say that kills my horses here, it's colic. Other than that, with African horse sickness, I have not even like experienced not even one case. I've only just experienced that outside the premises, like in your Eastern, in Ekurhuleni and stuff like that, whereby there's lots and lots of flays. I do know that there are some people there who are still using horses as a mode of transport for them to sell wood and coals as well, that like have still got horses. Other than that, no. But I think like as much as we're here, I'm learning a lot, as much as like one has got to take care of their animals. And I was like saying that I was just talking to my manager the other day, that saying that on doing my master's, of which I'm going to do it next year with the UP, University of Pretoria, doing a veterinary pharmacology, industrial veterinary pharmacology. I'm going to be doing that on the subject matter on animal on African horse disease, but I am going to do ethno veterinary pharmacology in terms of like herbs. And because many a times people have like have been complaining that the vaccine itself does not work, as much as you've alluded in saying that it doesn't matter for me whether I vaccinated, whether I did not vaccinate, whether I vaccinated. So it's something like that. I think there is some broader like kind of like knowledge that needs to be still explored into these. And especially I've got a plot in Niger whereby I've got my neighbors are owning Frisians. It's kind of like a small start, and they've been complaining of like that the fatality mortality rate has been very high there because of, like, as much as you're saying, the flays. You cannot sort of like control the breeding of those vectors in the water, because they need water to breed. And during certain times, those horses do go there and come up, and then they would have been, like, sucked up by these animals, insects, and they would have like incubating that disease at some point in time. And then they would be surprised, oh no, I have vaccinated. And there is another vaccination of which people use, but I'm not used to that. I'm not inclined to it because I have never been exposed to it. But then they say it's found in Pretoria. But is it? I'm not so
It's
sure.
probably DCA. It's probably DCA.
Yes, DCA. And then the people tend to compare it to the one that is produced in OPP, and say that it is much far much like effective than OPP produced vaccines. But
I think it is because DCA is a bit more updated. They put new strains into their vaccinations. So yes, I could think that that one would probably help a bit more. But yes, you've heard my view on that.
yeah, so.
But Sai, sorry for interrupting you.
Yes.
You were saying that you were stabling your horses and putting on the zapper lights, the blue zapper lights. And maybe that's part of your success, because I don't know, the other people here experiencing that. My horses live out in the field. They do not get stabled. We do spray them. We make a fly spray type thing, which we unfortunately have to add tabard, which contains DEET. But it's one of the lesser evils. Try and protect them as much as possible. So do you use any kind of fly spray at your stables, Sai?
We would, like, it's just that I'm not sure what kind of, like, but it's equi something. Sorry that I haven't, like,
Okay, so it's a basic fly spray.
Yeah, it's a basic fly spray, but that we would use that after we have just bled the animals, so that, like, they don't get to be pestered by the flies constantly now and then, because of, like, sometimes we'd let them, we would block that vein of which the jugular of which we've taken blood from, and when they go down there, they'll bleed at, like, at the entry of the needle. And sometimes, like, how pestering the flies can be, and, like, it kind of like wards them off. So it's not as if, like, we apply, like, the fly spray to each and every horse that we have, because we've got 60 horses here. So that will be a lot and lots of. So
all right. Okay.
That work well for us. I think that I could just give the, like,
okay. I just want to give the other people some insight. When he talks about bleeding the horses, they use the horse blood to testing the antivenoms. Am I right, Sai? Just a yes or no, that will be good.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's not. We're not testing. We're producing. We're taking the blood cell, the blood, and then we let it separates between the red and the white blood cells. And the white blood cells is that what we need, and then we'll transfuse back
to
the red
create
blood
the antivenoms.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much, Sai. All right, is there anybody else that wants to share something or ask a question on African horse sickness?
Hi, Tanya, Mali. Sorry.
Yes,
I
Mali.
I recently lost my baby stallion to African horse sickness. Yeah, it's a devastating.
Very sorry about that.
Extremely cruel illness. But what I found now is that you tend to find them with African horse sickness, EEV, and with tick. And that the three together is a problem. And I've since had 2 of my other horses now also come in with tick bites, even though we do treat and we are very proactive. Now I understand that it's very prevalent this year. So I tried a lot of the protocols with my horse. Unfortunately, we lost him. I would just like to know if there's any experience on DMSO and peroxide. People seem to talk about it. I'm a bit hesitant. the first thing. The second
Okay.
thing I've started making, because I'm very concerned about the DEET and the fly spray poison component, I've started using khaki boss. I make a khaki boss tea with a bunch of ingredients. Obviously, if I do have bees, avoiding the lemongrasses and those because they attract the bees.
Yes. I was just
And
about to say.
I've actually found the khaki boss extremely effective in keeping the insects away from the horses. And you can actually see where you sprayed the horse and where you've not sprayed him. It's that effective. And then also in terms of the cannabis oil, I think that you mentioned, I've done quite a bit of studying on that. THC is which is what you call cannabis, which is what you smoke. It's apparently poisonous to animals. It's not recommended in high dosages. What they do recommend is CBD. CBD is normally made from hemp, which is the better friend of cannabis. And just a word of caution here, you can buy a very good commercial at a very good price. Recommended dosage is 20 milligrams per horse per day on average. That's about the same as a human, because their heart rate is so slow. They metabolize it very slower than what we do. So I've had great success with the treating tick bite with CBD. It's really worked well for the horses. The two that I've managed now to pull through in the last week or so. So just any experience on the three and what have you done? Because that seems, I've heard some other people also have the three. And that's that. Thanks.
Okay.
Great question.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
As far as your questions on DMSO peroxide, DMSO, I remember years ago there was a big thing, everybody was using DMSO, and I didn't. I went and studied, asked questions. What is the DMSO for? It's basically a carrier, if I understand it correctly, and it carries medication much faster. That's what I understood. So I bought it and I didn't use it because I didn't understand it. So if somebody else has knowledge, they can share it with us. But I can get to the peroxide. There is a protocol where you inject peroxide into the vein of the horse, and I have used it more than once. I must tell you that the horses were not at the point where they were dying. They were still standing. So I have used the peroxide protocol about 2 or 3 times, but I've used it in conjunction with the other things that we use as well, like the herbal supplements and the allergics, etc. So I cannot tell you if that was the thing that made the difference, but I have tried it. I don't use it anymore because I have found the protocol that we are using currently is sufficient. If the horse gives us time, or the virus gives us time to treat the horse, we normally pull the horse through. The horses that we have lost are the horses that die within 2 to 4 hours of first symptoms. And we pick it up quite early because we take temperature every day. We take the horse's temperature morning and evening, and then we can see if there's a deviation in temperature, we immediately start treating. So we catch it early.
What?
So, yes?
So, sorry, I wanted to know, like, so are you just using a thermometer? How do you measure? What is the best ways to kind of
Yes, like
measure?
a baby thermometer.
Let's go through. Okay.
Anally.
Okay.
Put it anally, and then you measure twice a day. That's crucial, especially, this word I'm going to say with my tongue in cheek, especially in AHS season. AHS season used to be like 4 months of the year. It's not like that anymore. AHS is about nearly 10 months of the year now. It's ridiculous. It just keeps going and going and going. So it's very important to take your temperatures and write it down. Whenever you see a deviation in temperature, I don't even ask questions. I just start treating. And that has been a part of our success, as well as early detection and early treatment. So yes, I see here's a comment from John Ruggery. There is a brilliant fly tick spray. It is non-toxic. Insect Pro, and he uses it on his dogs. Thank you very much, John. It's always good to have recommendations of good products especially ones that are non-toxic. Amali, the other thing you was talking about was kakibos and cannabis oil. I'm not sure what your question about those ones are, because you gave the recommendation on cannabis oil, which is good. We must, and I hear what you say, it's toxic to animals, and I know it's toxic to dogs as well. So we also use it in small quantities.
CBD oil, though, is what's happening with CBD, right? And I think Amali did allude a little bit to this, is that essentially what's happening with CBD, I don't think it's actually from hemp. I think what happens is it could be from hemp, but it's my understanding of CBD oil that what's happened there is that the THC has been removed from the cannabis, from the cannabis itself, from the oil. So the THC is now being removed, or it's gone to such a minute amount that it's negligible, and therefore that's the difference between CBD oil and, let's say, if you were to take cannabis oil. CBD oil is meant to be clinically what you call, it's almost the dosage of THC that remains in CBD oil, especially if it's done properly, is meant to be less than 1%. So but you still get the other benefits of the cannabis itself. As far as I understand it, that's CBD oil. Okay, then Emily's saying 20 milligrams of CBD oil, so that's cool. Interesting,
that's
to
quite
note,
important.
Thanks for that one. Yeah, and interesting to note also is that when you mentioned Allergex, I was just thinking about. I know Allergex is available over the counter. We use that as an antihistamine for beekeeping. Okay, so when we get stung, it's also something we take as an antihistamine for bee stings as a treatment. And it just alleviates a lot of the symptoms that you're going to get, the itchiness, and a little bit of potentially hyperventilating as well. Some people have that as an effect. But celestamine is also something that's available. The only difference is that celestamine is not over the counter. That needs, as far as I understand it, it used to, when I used to use a celestamine a lot when I was doing bee removals, you have to get that by prescription. Whereas Allergex, I know, if I'm not mistaken, you can just buy it off the counter. You can get it off the shelf. You don't need a prescription for it, right? But the dosages is going to be about a quarter of what you would get in celestamine. So, and the price is also reflective. I think the last time I checked, celestamine is like, it was about three times more expensive, but your dosage is much higher. So, each to their own. I'm just saying that there are alternatives to Allergex. If you're looking for alternatives to Allergex, celestamine is another one. But again, you're going to have to watch out for, you're going to need to get it from a pharmacist. You can't just get it off the shelf like Allergex.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure, but I think celestamine also has cortisone inside.
It possibly does. That's also why it's more expensive, yeah. So you could
Richard,
get
do you have a question? I see you've unmuted yourself.
Mistake.
Okay, the other thing that people should always have in their in their medicine boxes, that they always should have I don't know what's happening here. Can you hear me?
Don't worry.
Go ahead.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I was just saying that in your medicine box, also you must always make it a point that you always have injectable supplements like your Chiroligo and other like supplements that you can just get to push them eventually, because horses that have got these diseases, are having a hard time to swallow, to eat and stuff like that. So you also need that as a means. And if possible, you are trained to do sort of like a nasal tube feeding, like perform some sludge. You can just dip some feed and make it sort of like sloppy, and then you can feed it through the tube only. But you can just perform that only if you know what you're doing, because you don't want to end up creating much problems on top of what you have. So I suggest that it becomes a norm as well. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. We also, as you say, we soak their lucerne or their grass in water, so they do get some water. There's a myth out there that you should cut your horse's water out. You should not give them water because of the water retention. That is that is the biggest mistake you could make. Your horse needs water. So even though it's got water retention, it needs water. So work on driving down the water, but give your horse water. So we soak our grass in our lucerne, and we also, as you say, make the food sloppy, and we put the herbal supplements in there. But I do like that you say we need to have injectables as well. I think that's a very good point. And Amali also said the CBD oil, rub it in their mouth so it gets absorbed and not swallowed. Rather, absorbed is better than swallowed. All right. Okay, well, if there's no other questions about the African horse sickness, I want us to also talk a bit about other livestock, vector-related diseases in livestock, like bloatong. Sai, you can tell us more about that. We did experience before I hand it over to you. Here on the farm, we've experienced a lot of diseases this year because we had fantastic rain. But with the fantastic rain came Staph Aureus, and we believe one of our horses had West Nile virus as well. It wasn't tested, but the symptoms was West Nile virus type symptoms. So these things come with rain. Can you tell us more about diseases that comes with rain for livestock and what we can do about it, please, Sai?
Okay, then thank you, Tan, for the opportunity. One of, not one, just some of the diseases that I can just tell you about that comes up with lots and lots of rainfall. Of course, your mosquitoes, in terms of like, you do know that mosquitoes are the ones, are vectors that causes EEV. And as well as your midges, your calicoides midges are the ones, you know, that they're abundant in terms of times of rainy season. And the other thing that people, I think that it's few people, if not some, that do know that with such high rains also comes conditions that would, you know, like render animals to be non-profitable, like your liver flukes, your fasciola hepatica. They're abundant in terms of like heavy rainy season. Like you do know that, or you'd kind of like inclined is like, how do they get into, in terms of like, I'm talking about the liver flukes. You do know that their intermediate host are snails. You do know that, and then from there, after then they being shed from snails, then they would go into the sedge or grass. They would patch themselves, waiting for to be picked up by, you know, like any potential host, and then therefore, hence then you will normally in winter, in summertime, it's normally people would deworm at certain intervals. But what I have noticed here, we have kind of like now deworming each and every after 2.5 during the rainy seasons, because we know that that's where your snail prevalence is likely to be. And as well as like the blue tongue, as much as you are saying, blue tongue, you do know that it has a very adverse negative impact on your livestock, because you cannot just keep on livestock without making babies. And during that time, these things causes abortions to the animals. They causes more and more of fatalities. So just to ward that off, it's important that you know exactly what you're doing in terms of like your management. And you know, like I would stress that prevention is better than cure, because you want to ward off the problem before it pops right into your house. So the vaccines are a top priority in terms of like the blue tongue, as well as the other diseases. But we've never, I'm not so sure in your region, how have you dealt with that? Rift Valley fever tends to become very problematic during rainy seasons. I know in terms of like around in Heidelberg, Gauteng, there were some farmers that I know that you know, like from time to time that I would help, they've lost sheep due to Rift Valley fever, as well as mosquitoes of like the family of Calyx and the Aedes. They do cause diseases such as like fowl pox in chicken. So you make sure as much as I'm saying that 10, but it will also depend on, you know, like the how people, you know, like the affordability of people on how to, because we do know that electricity is expensive, and the fly zappers are working on electricity. If like people could just install that, I'm not so sure if do they come also in terms of like the of the solar panels. I'm not so sure of that, but if people could just shop around, probably they would come out with something. So basically, those things, prevention before the water comes into your house, it's very much important.
All right. So prevention in terms of vaccinations as well. So I must also tell the vaccinations for these vector-related viruses in livestock, I have found to be effective. It's totally different to the African horse sickness vaccination that I found. So
Sure.
yes, it's worthwhile to vaccinate against Rift Valley fever and blue tongue and Stavicicta, all these things. Because a Stavicicta, for instance, can render your bull infertile because of the temperatures that it reaches. So yes, definitely some vaccinations. And the other thing you said is to try and eliminate the vectors itself with the lights, etc. Is that your recommendation?
Oh,
just unmute yourself.
Unmute, Sai.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
And
that's right.
thank you, Warwick. And people should vaccinate during the time of vaccination. People, many at times I've seen people whereby they would say, no, we're vaccinating, my cow is sick, or you know, like my animal is sick, and then you do not, vaccinations are not administered to already sick animals. You vaccinate, it's prevention, it's not sort of like a treatment.
Not a cure, yeah, it's not a cure.
So during the vaccination season, people should just do that. And as well as in cattle, I know that you've mentioned three-day stiff sickness as well. It's caused by mosquitoes. You're right, Ten. Vaccinations in other species of animals, taking out African horse sickness, they work extremely well. It's just that people should be trained and people should be told on how to do these things so that they, you know, like they kind of like boost their profitability even during such times as hard as those, because we do know that summer times, as much as it is good, but it can be sometimes be a menace. Sure.
Okay.
So thanks for that. Marley's just talking about treating African horse sickness, EEV, which is equine. What does that actually stand for?
Yes.
Equine what?
It's also equine virus. So
okay.
yes, it's also
and
one of those
viruses. All together. So all three of those must be quite a bad.
Equine virus, yes.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm not familiar. I wasn't familiar. I knew the AHS, but I wasn't familiar with EEV. Thanks for qualifying for everybody. All three at the same time, I'm assuming.
Sure.
That's got to be quite hectic. Yes, she says
Amali,
yes. So that's quite nasty.
Amali, I haven't had any experience personally with EEV or not even tick bite in horses. I've had tick bite in other animals, but not in horses. So I'm unable to answer that question for you effectively. However, I think it is a very good question that we can pose to somebody like Camilla Weyer, a veterinarian down from the Cape, maybe. What I will do, Amali, is I will find out about that for you, and I will get back to you personally on this one. So if you want to send me your details, you are welcome. Then we can try and figure out a plan for that, because that sounds intense.
I'd say.
Sure, that must be really, really bad. So I will find out for you.
I'm interested in that you mentioned using peroxide earlier on intravenously.
Yes.
As a kind of a last resort, eh? Is that right?
Yes, that is, well, it's actually, there's a whole group on Facebook of people just treating horses with peroxide. And that's their treatment protocol. Yes.
Who is that?
Yes, is it hydrogen peroxide?
Oh.
That they're treating
yes, it is.
Okay.
That's what I want to know as well,
glucose. They mix it with glucose.
I think I know where you're going with this, Sai. Are we on the same page?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, tell us.
Right. honey, raw honey, has got a natural hydrogen peroxide in it. It's one of the reasons why it's so potent for treating things like can't say it, but you know what I'm talking about.
Staphylococcus.
That's the one.
Staphylococcus or
Thank
something.
you. It's been proven that honey, raw honey now, okay, you can't go buy the stuff off the shelf because that's been heat treated, and so the chances of it having the high natural hydrogen peroxide in it, well, actually it's probably still okay, but I would treat raw. I would use raw filtered honey from a local beekeeper, has natural hydrogen peroxide in it as a standard.
That's
and obviously
interesting.
it would have it has sucrose and fructose as the natural sugar in there that you were talking about in terms of doing it with glucose. I think you just mentioned that.
Yes, so they add glucose.
And if I'm not mistaken, I would say horses, because we're able to obviously eat honey. I mean, I'm thinking horses probably can as well. Don't quote me on that. That Sai might have better data on that.
You're right, Warwick, because I was kind of like skeptical in terms of like using it as it is, because I know that thing burns quite very
that's
bad. So
hurt, man.
Imagine going it into the stream and stuff like that. But I do not know into how do
internally
they attenuate it? Yes, in sort of like they weaken it so that it doesn't get to burn. Because we do normally we would use it to flush off, like, you know, like infected wounds and stuff like that. But imagine then when it just gets into the system. But as much as we are alluding that honey, I was just going to go there, that honey has got that you know, like natural.
Naturally.
So I think that using like natural based stuff, it's much better than using this synthetic, you know, like kind of like, you know, like
chemical
stuff that
based.
some of us proven works. Yeah.
Sai, I just want to tell you, I agree that natural is much better. However, I want to get back to pharmaceutical and herbal. We have tested herbal alone. Herbal is great, don't get me wrong, but we cannot pull a horse through without adding pharmaceuticals. So we do use the combination. We do need the pharmaceuticals to make the impact. As far as the peroxide is concerned, it is mixed to a certain strength that does not hurt the horse. So it's carefully worked out. However, as I said, I don't use it anymore. I tried it 2 times, but I've got my protocol that works for me. Somebody else said, yeah, they give their horses raw honey often with propolis, which is a good idea, and mix it with golden paste. Very good. And she's pulled through a horse with pneumonia successfully, and it's great as an anti-inflammatory. Good.
Very much so. Yeah, and then also mentioning beeswax on wounds, also great. Yeah, if you can mix it with a bit of olive oil or coconut oil, works really well. Just as simple as that. But I wanted to ask you the other thing you mentioned early on, and I mean, I'm not, I know beekeeping really well and the things around beekeeping, like, the venom and the propolis and the honey and all those sort of things and beeswax. But something else I know from a herbology perspective is in terms of getting rid of the water. I don't know if you've tried, because you mentioned parsley. What about corn silk?
I don't know corn silk.
Have you heard of corn silk?
Is it a herb?
It's not. It's
the mealie, the maize.
Silk from a mealie and the maize. You know the silk, the yellow.
Okay, got it.
Yellow strands.
You need it available though.
It's called.
Yes.
But you can
That's good stuff.
You can make tea out of it, and you don't need too much to make the tea out of that. And I've used that personally.
It's good for kidneys.
Exactly. That's exactly what I've used it for. My uncle had horrible. He actually passed away from it eventually. We couldn't. It's really untreatable. Like 9 out of 10 people pass away from it. And but in the meantime, we bought him. We got him some time.
Okay, that's
using
great.
Corn silk as one of the things to try and get his body, because his body just wasn't able to process the water, which is similar to what you're talking about here. That happens with the horses if they're not careful. And
there's another herb that helps.
About the corn silk.
There's another herb that helps. Okay, Sai, go ahead.
Yes,
And I'll get
Warwick,
to the herbs.
the corn silk, does it matter whether it comes from white or yellow maize?
That I'm not sure of, actually. That's a good question. The corn silk I've seen in photographs and that I've used has been yellow based, like a golden color. So I don't know if that makes any difference. It's a great question. I don't actually know. I didn't realize that there was actually a difference in the corn silk itself. If
Yeah,
there
it's
was
just
from
that I've seen that myself,
different maize.
I've seen that myself, but I'm not sure. The only question was whether does it work the same as the one that you would extract from yellow or either like white.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
You know what? We can test it.
Yeah,
Sai,
worthwhile
go
testing
make
that.
yourself a few cups of teas for a few days and see what how much water you're driving down and how often, and you will see a difference. For instance, when that's another herb I wanted to recommend. When your horse is on the healing path, it's good to also introduce herbs that help the organs that were affected. Now, the organs that really get affected with African horse sickness is number one, the heart. And a great herb for the heart is hawthorn. Then there's your liver needs to be looked after. That's milk thistle is your best one for your liver. And then also one to drive down water is your stinging nettle herb. So you can give that. Yes, you can give that to your horses as well on their road to recovery and even afterwards. Now, those are all things that you can also have in your kit. All right. And then also just wanting to come back quickly just to prevention as well. If you can't afford herbal supplements, because herbal supplements are really, really expensive, go look what you have in your garden and then go search. You know, you want certain components in a herbal mix, and just make sure that you find out if they are suitable for your horses. But go look, if you've got, why do we want to get exotic herbs from other places in the world if what we've got in our garden is effective? And that's the thing about self-sustainable or self-sufficient homesteading and gardening, is try and use what you have as well. So at my place, I make my own supplements for my horses. I dry my herbs that are in the garden. I look for the qualities that I want in herbs. I look if they are suitable for horses, and then I put them in my supplement mix. And that mix they get every single day. They get their little scoop in their food at nighttime. And when they are sick, I even use that supplement every 2 hours. They get it into their slosh. They get their herbal supplement. So go do your own research on that if you can't afford to buy a herbal supplement to upkeep your horses. It's really not that hard. Just make sure you do your research. All right. Okay, is there any other questions, guys? Any vector-related disease questions? African horse sickness, unfortunately, we couldn't answer that question for Amari now about the combination of the three. We will get back to her. Anything else that you would like to know something about, or we can talk and maybe somebody else in the group can even answer some questions if they're knowledgeable on it.
I think people that also can, something that they can look into is, it's abundant everywhere, you know, like in the bushes and in everywhere, something that is called wild dagga. I'm not so sure if you, yes, it's exceptionally well. I do have it in my garden, and I've taken it from somewhere, and, you know, like I dried it up and then kind of like sprinkled the seeds in my garden, and then I let them be, and then today they grow. It's in humans. I know that it's good for. It's a powerful natural antibiotic. It heals flu. You know, like yeah, basically it heals flu. But antibiotic, you do know that, you know, like it, because it has got sort of like their properties. So it would not only just be limited into healing flu and stuff like that, but some other things that, as much as we have recommended, that the heart, I mean, like the liver takes strain. So I think, you know, like as much as that the cleansing, it also cleanses, by the way, the system. And I think it would, but of course people should go and research that as if like, is it suitable to use in horses? But I do know it. From time to time, I do make a cup of tea out of it, and I just have it. And when my kids are sick, I not just quickly run to the pharmacy, and I do it myself and see if how far do they get. And then therefore, after then, when I see that they do not improve, then only when I go to the pharmacy. But you're right, all that we have. And also people, if they're not sure, they can also download this Snapchat thing. You get it, you can go to, what is it, this where you download your apps. What is it that
The App Store and a plant identification.
Yes, the plant identification stuff. You can just download it, and when you get in front of the plant or a tree or whatever, you just take a snap of it, and then it will tell you what it is. So, and it will also give you the properties that the plant has in it, so that definitely people must not spend, like beyond more than what they can. Yeah. Sure.
Yes.
I've got one that's called Picture This, which is quite good. It's free. I mean, you can have a membership, but it's pretty good. Every time I've photographed a plant ID, it tells you exactly what family it's from, and it's been accurate every time, which is cool. Picture This also works. I think it also might even I think they've started to take birds as well, for bird viewers, but it's primarily for plants up front. But that's a great idea. Yeah.
Another plant
studies? Sorry. Yeah, go on, Tanya.
Another plant that I think a lot of people have in their garden is lemongrass. I use a lot of lemongrass. A lemongrass is like a multivitamin in your garden. I use a lot of that. I dry it because it's so bushy and it gets so much. It's just so abundant. I dry my lemongrass. I also give that to my horses. So there's so many things in your garden that you can look at. Yes, Jenny says always be aware of the interactions between herbals and pharmaceuticals. Very good point. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, and obviously none of us are actually veterinary qualified for any of this advice. So please obviously consider chatting to your vet before you administer anything without prior experience.
Only. Yes.
Yeah.
Was there something else you wanted to say, Warwick, before we conclude this?
I don't think it matters which color mealies it comes from. So I don't think it matters, but I think it's just worthwhile maybe just trying to Google that just in case people want to qualify, but I don't think it's going to matter in terms of the corn silk thing. But I'm quite keen because Tanya and I, we've chatted lots about herbology and pharmacology and stuff like that. And I'm interested now that we introduce, we're discussing a little bit of the side treatments or potential options that we've got. I'm just wondering, we talk about Kalkibos, we talked about CBD, we talked a bit about corn silk now as well. I'm wondering if there's potential in some of the barks, tree barks, the local tree barks in South Africa or Southern Africa that could potentially also help, that haven't been. I've done a lot of research on the marula tree, for example, and the bark for the marula, and then you've got the moringa as well. I can't speak on AHS, but I know that they're also pretty good in terms of antibacterial, antiviral, in humans anyway. But I'm not sure if they'd be applicable for these particular cases. But it would be interesting to look into and maybe see if people would be interested in doing a little R&D on that, just as a community, and see if there's anything that can come out of that as well.
I can tell you not about the bark, but about the powder. With the treatment of this last horse, I've given huge amounts of moringa every 2 hours. Supplementary to the herbal mix that I was giving extra moringa powder. I was giving about 20 grams every 2 hours in their slosh food as well. And I do believe that also played a role. Just be careful with your moringa with animals that have to reproduce, pregnant mares and stuff. Go do your research on that, definitely.
Hi, Tanya. I was just about to go there because some stuff have got sort of like properties that has got to do with estrogen, and sometimes
Yes.
they can cause induce abortions. So
Correct.
you just don't want to take anything and just use. And the other thing that I wanted to go to, especially if people say, but where am I going to get these things and stuff like that, in terms of like doing their own R&Ds at homes. There are people, especially those, like those gogos that would just sit by next to the road. I'm not so sure if you do have them there. We call them African sort of like pharmacy, and they do have all the herbs. So you can just go and experiment and get some stuff there, and you can just ask them around so that you get kind of like what is it that specific herbs do, so that you go to your house and then you get to experience and experiment with it, and then therefore probably basically you would get it. So some of these things are right next to like our houses. You just need to go, because we do know, but of course that they don't just, some of them do grow in a specific area and stuff like that. But as much as someone here has alluded to that, we should also like be careful, like the correlation between the pharmaceutics and the herbals. That's a very good idea, so that we really do know what is it that we're doing, so that we're saying that probably we trying to get something out, and in the meantime like we're just messing up everything.
Okay.
Counterproductive.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, any last few questions? I think we're running
Out of time, yes.
over time.
What I think I'll do is, Warwick, I'll write my protocol for anybody that would like to have my protocol and what's in my kit for African horse sickness, and we can send it out in a newsletter if you guys want it. I see Zelda says yes. I will do that for you, Zelda, and for anybody else that wants it, we'll send it out, and then that can just be like an emergency measure for you. And thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Warwick, my co-host, and everybody else. It was great. Hope some questions were answered, and we will see you next week again. Whoever wants to join us and wants to be in running for the beehive, we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks again, Sai.
Thank you, Warwick and Tan. Have a lovely evening.
All right,
Bye-bye.
guys. All the best, and look out for the next talk next Wednesday. Okay, we're going to send you guys an email in the newsletter, give you a reminder, and then we'll send through the breakdown, the PDF from Tanya as well.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Ciao.